Well, Jules, you mentioned the fact that you don't think Manchester United would have enough money to go after the big name strikers as well, but they do have a lot of players that need letting go. Word is there's a 5 list of unwanted players. Just look at some of the names right there. Anthony, who Craig just mentioned, Alejandro Garnacho, which still leaves me scratching my head, Tyrell Malacia, Marcus Rashford, who we know is definitely still on a pretty penny, and Jadon Sancho, where it just has gone from bad to worse for him at Manchester United. So what's it looking like for these players?
It's not looking great, Alexis, because they have been banned from turning up at the training ground in the daytime. Basically, they can only go there after 5 p.m. to train on their own. I mean, they would have coaches with them and fitness coaches, but on their own without the rest of the first team squad, which is fine. A lot of clubs do that. A lot of clubs have players that they want to let go. I understand that. It's just not a good look when you get to the point that you so badly want those players out that you're actually banning them technically from your training ground while people are there. This is what it means. And I don't think it's a good look for a club like that. I don't think it's a good look for Ruben Amorim either. It means that your relationship with those players has been so bad that you can't even bear having them in your first team squad. Don't tell me that those 5 can't do rondos and a few drills at training or run because you are in pre-season and you do a lot of running with the ball and without the ball. And yet he doesn't want them near him and near that first team squad. So this is the way it is. And again, loads of clubs, not just United, loads of even top clubs in Europe have sometimes systems like this to keep those players fit until they find another club. We understand that. I still don't think it's a good look for United or any other clubs doing that kind of stuff.
I mean, these stories are the reason we're talking about Manchester United, aren't they? Because, well, let's be honest, Manchester United have always been a talking point. They've always been a big club in cup competitions, in particular for networks, for viewers. They've got a big draw. All of that sort of stuff. People have always wanted a piece of Manchester United in a certain slot because they've always pulled interest, clicks, viewership, and I get that. And in some sense, we're talking about them because they still are. But in terms of a team, in terms of a club going forward, in terms of what we're going to see on the park, they're barely worth talking about. They really are barely worth talking about here. Now, the issues that they have are why we discuss Sancho and Rashford and all these kind of things. My bigger question would be, bearing in mind, up until right to the end of the season, or even to the end of the season, Ruben Amorim had only beaten in the Premier League in the second half of the season teams that were going to be relegated to the Championship. What point, if at all, if United splutter at the start of this season, is he on his high horse back to Portugal? Because there can't be a continuation of last year's league form. They cannot. And he can splutter on all he wants about systems and about getting my players and doing it. I did it this way at Sporting Lisbon and it was successful. Not one Man United fan gives a toss about what he did at Sporting Lisbon, because it doesn't affect what happens at Manchester United. And the big question is going to be, with that sort of 11 that Gilles put up, and that could alter depending what happens in pre-season, how much does Ruben Amorim need to figure out how to get results at this club before Ineos empty him? I think that is going to be the big question. Does the leper have to change his spots to get results? Last year would suggest no, he's not going to do it. And then you've got to ask the question, has he got enough? And is he going to get enough in this transfer window to be able to play this back three in the way that he plays and have success? Because a lot of teams in the Premier League outplayed and took them apart last year. And, you know, Ruben Amorim could be a manager very early on in this season that's on some real rocky ground.
I think the other aspect to this in questioning Ineos' role throughout is certainly a financial one. And what does that injection of cash kind of look like? Because a couple of years ago, we were talking about Manchester United, despite the club size, having issues with profit and sustainability. Now, all of a sudden, already, and while we were sitting mid-July. There's still 6 weeks left, roughly, in this transfer window. They've already spent over 100 million on a couple of players. We're talking about a new goalkeeper, talking about still needing a number 9. And while you have quite a healthy list of talent to sell, the closer we get to that end of August, the more clubs recognise that Manchester United are desperate to sell. And not just to get rid of players that they don't want, but quite possibly to balance those books. And Jules may very well know better than me as to Manchester United's current financial position. So it really is a game of chicken in the transfer market that Manchester United find themselves playing. And it just, again, questions. Again, it raises the issue of back in Nordia, and while we could talk about exactly how good Manchester United were as a football team back in when we were playing, there was no question that they were also one of the best run football clubs in world football. And again, how this club is being run, you question that just as much as how it's performing on the park.
How can then Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think this was a statement that he made, sort of a kind of bold statement a few months ago, said in 18 months or whatever time period, this club will run out of money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yet, okay, Rashford and all that, they were not his, he inherited a lot of it, but they're going out and spending 100-odd million already. They've already let the tea lady go and all these people behind the scenes. It must be galling for those people that were made redundant to see all these players on hundreds of thousands at training at 5 p.m. at night. And then you make statements about a club running out of money, and yet you're able to go out and spend this kind of money on players that are not very good. So the two things, and I know you've got to balance books with business and all that sort of stuff behind the scenes, and generally for a lot of companies there's a natural waste, and you try and sort of, thin that out to make sure you're as efficient as possible. But to sit there and say, we need to make these decisions and we need to take Sir Alex off the books and we need to take, and I'm sure he's not bothered because he's a very rich individual, and rightly so with the work he did. But then all these other people that have been let go, quite a lot of them, and there may be more, to sit and hear them talking about running out of money whilst wasting money and then spending it big on players. It just, at this moment in time, for me, and I've not changed my stance on this, Ineos, whilst the Glazers run the club on debt and took a lot of money out, whilst Ineos have poured money in to have a minority shareholding in the group, in the company, which doesn't seem great business, there is nothing saying to me at the moment, apart from the fact that Ineos are really good business people and have made billions from the business they're in, that they have a Scooby-Doo what they're doing running a football club the size of Man United.
Well, I tell you what, I started out the show by saying it's a good day to be Manchester United, but let me tell you, reality came crashing down on me just now. So